Family disputes can make us feel isolated and vulnerable. Maybe you're going through a divorce or a legal dispute about your kids. Perhaps you've spent hours on Google or have even posted anonymously on Facebook to see what others have to say. But are you getting the actual information and support that you're looking for? Our podcast, Legal Lounge, aims to dispel misinformation and downright bad legal information to empower anyone with questions about their family, their children, their finances, their marriage, and the law. As a team focused exclusively on family law matters, we aim to help listeners not only with the information they need, but also with the hope that their situation has a solution. Short disclaimer, please note this podcast is for educational purposes only, and the information should not be relied upon as legal advice or for legal purposes. Welcome back to the Legal Lounge. Hey, Tiffany, how are you?
Hello. It is Friday.
It is Friday.
And I've had coffee, so we're good.
I love recording on a Friday morning with a good coffee store next door.
Mm-hmm.
So today, I love just having a conversation with you, another attorney in modern legal, and going over some of the topics that come up often in our line of work.
Yep.
So often, in fact, we are creating this podcast episode to spread the legal education.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully when someone stumbles across this podcast, they know a bit more about what it means to be not only a business owner,
Mm-hmm.
but also a business owner in this episode as it relates to their family and their marriage.
Yeah.
So I guess let's just address the biggest topic is business. If you have a business,
Mm-hmm.
what should you do?
Well, I mean, just have the business and that's it.
Yeah.
Isn't that how this works?
Just collect the money and say,
yeah, and we'll be fine. No, please fill out the necessary paperwork to incorporate it, to protect it, to make it separate from you.
Yes.
That's really important. I think one of the biggest themes for today, business and personal do not mix.
Yes, agreed.
You may have created your business, but you are not the business.
Yep. Separate entities.
Yes. And so by filling out that paperwork, getting that stuff filed, that solidifies that you and your business are two separate entities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are pretty fortunate here in North Carolina specifically. The North Carolina Secretary of State actually has a lot of tools and resources for people who want to open a business. Feel free to Google it.
Yeah.
This is one of the few times I will give you permission to Google.
Exactly.
But Google North Carolina Secretary of State, I want to open a business. And they literally will walk through the steps with you on how to open that business. Of course, if you have a little bit more of a detailed arrangement for your business, let's say you have partners, let's say there's a lot of money and regulation involved, you may want to go ahead and consult with a business law attorney, which is, we have plenty of referrals for that type of resource. But to your point, at the very least, fill out that incorporation document, fill out those articles, and maybe even a partnership agreement, and all of that will be regulated by the Secretary of State.
Absolutely. Especially given the world that we live in now where, I mean, anybody can create any type of business between the internet and social media. I mean, people are being able to create the lives that they want for themselves in ways that I think our parents and our grandparents wouldn't have really thought of.
Yeah.
And so it becomes really important to start thinking about, okay, how do I protect this thing that I have created for myself?
Speaking of creative businesses, okay, Tiffany does not expect this, but
no.
First off, love Chef Ramsay. Hey, Chef Ramsay. He and a few other professional chefs just, I think it's been out for a couple years, but it's a new show, and it really is focused on helping the TikTok chef. We're literally, especially during the pandemic, when restaurants closed and certain businesses closed, people got creative. And yes, there is a profession called, I don't know if it's for much longer going to be called TikTok chef, but TikTok chef or social media chef or, Reels, online Reels chefs. And they've literally created a business. And my thought process, of course, as a lawyer was, okay, brand that and incorporate that and protect that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now you have created an entity that is not only creating revenue for the chef, right? but it's also creating, possible liabilities, possible influences and legal implications that the TikTok chef may not recognize.
Right.
So yes, from one lawyer to all the listeners out there, please think about incorporating your business.
Yes. And you may not think that you need to because, it's not that big. It's just this little, I just do this in my spare bedroom or in the garage or whatever. But that it doesn't have to be major.
Yeah.
You've created something.
Yep.
And so I would imagine that it's important to you. So let's make sure that you protect it.
Yep. And a side plug there, be sure to talk with a tax professional such as a CPA, because regardless of the size of business, there are tax implications.
Yes.
Let's shift more into our realm, specifically the family law realm. What are some considerations business owners should think about when they are thinking about getting married?
The most important one is making sure that your business and your personal do not intersect. So if you already have the business and you're thinking about getting married, make sure that those business accounts are completely separate from your personal accounts. And then have you had a conversation with your soon-to-be spouse? How are we going to be treating this business? Are we coming into this with the expectation that the business is going to be ours collectively? Or is it something where it's, no, that's going to be my business or that's going to be your business, even though we're getting married? And if that's the case, we're going to have to do some paperwork to make sure that that stays that way.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it, the law is not going to treat it that way.
Yeah. Should a divorce occur? I think we need business owners to recognize if you have a business before the date of marriage and you get married without a prenup that states otherwise, any after date of marriage efforts on that business, including just showing up and opening the door for that business, is now a marital act, an active marital act. And if that business tends to do better or takes off, hint, hint, Amazon, then you are now dealing with a marital asset or a marital interest in a business asset, even though you created the business before the date of marriage.
Exactly. And then that's when people their eyes pop open and they're like, but I started that myself and they've never had anything to do with it. That doesn't actually matter, unfortunately.
Nope. That date of marriage matters more.
Yes.
Than if you were the only one who worked on the business during the marriage.
Exactly. Because in the law's eyes, that marriage now has an interest because it was there during the growth of this business. So now that marriage has an interest in what that growth was.
Yep.
And that is what is getting divided.
Yep.
If and when a separation takes place.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't stress that enough. So if there is this understanding, if you will, when you're having this conversation with your soon-to-be spouse, and there is the conversation that says, no, honey, that's your business. You created it. I want that to remain your business, and I don't want any involvement in it. Then you do need to actively sign a prenup. Yes. Because the laws don't look at it that way.
Correct.
The family laws.
Right.
So for the business owners out there, keep that in mind. Going one step further, let's say spouses get married. No one owns a business, but there may be a business open in the future.
Correct. Because again, this is the era that we live in. People create businesses all the time. It's becoming easier and easier.
Yep.
Because people are becoming more and more creative and amazing.
Yes.
So here we are.
And I feel like it's a possibility. I mean, I'll be honest. Yes, I founded Modern Legal. Yeah. Ask me 10 years ago, would I have opened a business? No, I don't want to deal with the IRS. Payroll, all of that. But here I am, a business owner. And sometimes you cannot predict what will happen. So thinking about in a prenup discussion, okay, are there future aspirations for a business or the possibility? Maybe we want to address that. Go one step further, though. If you do get married and then you decide to open a business that you never thought you were going to open, there is also the tool called the postnuptial agreement. Building relationships is a natural part of life. But how does the law affect those relationships? Do you want to marry your significant other, but have cold feet from the many divorce horror stories out there? Are you preparing for a custody battle against your ex? That is where Modern Legal comes in. We offer education and knowledge about the law when it affects the relationships near and dear to your heart. To learn more about how family law affects your family, book a consultation with an attorney of our Modern Legal team by visiting our website, emailing us, or calling us at 704-286-6302. Check out the information about Modern Legal Services at modernlegalnc.com. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about the postnup.
So postnups are similar, but they are not exactly the same. So there are certain things that you can do in a prenup that you cannot do in a postnup. But for the purposes of what we're talking about from the business standpoint, it can still do what you need to do to protect this new business that you never thought would have been created. So if, you all, let's say you and your spouse have been married 5-10 years, and then let's say both of you have retired, and then somebody decides, I'm going to start this thing, and then it becomes successful. And now we're sitting here like, well, what am I going to do? That same conversation that we were telling you to have before you got married.
Yeah.
Now that this business is here, we need to have a conversation about that.
Yep.
And how do both of you see this business? Yeah. Is it our business? Is it one person's business? And once we come to that determination, we need to start putting some of that in writing.
Yeah. Formalize that in the postnup.
Yeah.
Because I literally just had the consultation a couple weeks ago where husband created a business. Everything was in his name. And so he thought it was his separate property. Parties have been married a long time. Yeah. Long before the business was created. And I was sitting there like, not saying that my client necessarily wanted a separation, but he's in for a rude awakening if one takes place. If one does take place. Yeah. On the flip side, my prospective client was also concerned of liabilities, right? Because if there isn't a postnup, if there aren't organization documents for this business, right, if things are not written out in a legally enforceable document, then it's very possible that marriage could become liable for certain debts and aspirations of that quote unquote business owner. And so I see it often enough where people just thought the law worked in a certain way and it didn't. Yes. And go one step further, if you want something to apply in a certain way in your relationship, then put it down in writing. Exactly.
The law is it wants you to have the ability to set yourself up the way you want to, but you have to write it down. They give you the ability to do that, but if you don't take advantage of it, they've got default rules.
Yes.
And quite often, you're not going to like the default rules.
I don't like the default rules.
No, most people don't like the default rules.
I've worked in this industry for over a decade now, and I don't like the default rules.
Exactly. I would like to think that people that create and start businesses, they do like some level of control in their life. They like to be able to say what happens when and how.
Sure.
Take that same concept and that same drive that you have to have control over certain things and put it into what happens to your business.
Yeah.
Writing it down in a prenup, a postnup, the articles of incorporation for the business, all of that gives you the control to say how your business functions, how it's handled, and if the relationship between you and your spouse changes, what happens to this business?
Yeah.
It's not left up to this third party who you've never met and doesn't know a thing about your business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that expands because we're not only talking business interests here, but let's say you want to invest in your friend's business or you want to make a risky investment. Ever heard of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
There are all these things out there that luckily I've named successful examples, but I'm positive there's 100 examples of failures out there. And so especially as a business owner, you are taking risks. So not only is this a conversation, whether it's before the marriage or after the marriage in a prenup or postnup, about protecting the business should it be successful, but what if it fails? Do you want your spouse to be taken down with you and possibly you personally, as well as the business, go down?
Yeah.
Or do you want your spouse to be your hand out of the grave? Like that helps you back out. The safety net.
Safety. It's like,
right?
Like if something goes wrong, we both can't go down.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? Like one of us needs to still be afloat.
Yes, someone needs to have the lifeboat prepared, right? And so if we can use these tools that are available through the law to really protect and organize financial and business interests to benefit both parties, then let's use them. I think they're underutilized right now by our community.
Oh, across the board. And I think if they were utilized more, some of our more contentious cases that we have would not exist because we've already prepared for the contingencies and we've already said how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And so nobody should be coming into this surprised when we have to actually put this into action. And it's like, well, that's not what we said we were doing. Well, yeah, no,
there it
it's
is
right here. We did it way in the beginning before anybody was upset and kind of, heard about one thing or another, or there have been years of issues that have happened. We did this from a clear standpoint. It's clearer than we would be right now if we were asked to do it.
And so let's shift to that very unclear mindset that occurs when you're going through separation or divorce. I have represented plenty of business owners who, during the divorce process, not only are surprised to find how the law works, but then the law, how should I say this? The statutes are technically black and white, right? It's black ink on white paper.
Yep.
And as they apply to your business, couldn't be more gray.
Right.
Everything in between the lines is what we're having to deal with when we are then distributing a business or business interests as a result of divorce. I think we have a lot of complexities because there's what we call the business valuation.
Yep. Which is...
We are laughing and making faces at one another just so the listener knows.
Yeah.
Because even the business valuation is speculative.
Yes.
Because even though we will bring in, say, a business valuator, maybe a business valuator who has valued so many of this specific type of business, they've done it for over 20 years. And still, that business valuation is not certain.
Right.
We also have other factors that come into the valuation. You have your fair market value, but then can you actually find a customer that will buy this business?
Exactly.
What documents are used? What liabilities are addressed? Did they pay taxes properly? These are all questions that come up just during the valuation process. Go one step further. What if both sides say, no, I want my own valuator?
What would a court do if we've got two competing? Like, do they ask for a third neutral to come in, or what are they doing at that point?
In my experience, normally they're splitting the baby. So,
yeah.
And I don't say that to mean they're just, averaging two numbers willy-nilly. It's more, they will hear from both experts, see which one is more reliable, which even that is speculative.
Yeah.
And then they will figure out, okay, what factors do I include as the judge, as the fact finder, to then factor into a value. And whether we like it or not, let's say, spouse one, their business valuation came back at $2 million and the other spouses came back at $6 million. Well, to be honest, that now you've defined the extremes for quote unquote for the judge.
Got the boundaries now.
Got the boundaries, and the amount's going to be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Go one step further. We're not even talking about how much each valuator was paid for that valuation. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And then let's back up here. Those valuators need documents to do their valuation. Who's providing the documents? Maybe that costs money. And then, these things called attorneys, these people called attorneys are probably involved to help get the documents, to help lay the claims, to help facilitate these valuations of the businesses for legal purposes. And so suddenly you're getting these valuations. And yes, if it's a big company, if it's a multi-million-dollar company, it is probably best to do that due diligence, but the cost to get there is astronomical.
Right. And by and large, I'm guessing that like the businesses that we're talking about, especially from the average everyday couple or person, these aren't the multi-million-dollar businesses. These are the smaller businesses. So the cost benefit equation to that changes significantly.
Well, and when I say a business was valued at $2 million, $5 million, $8 million, I'm not talking Amazon, right?
No.
In that divorce, right? That's billions of dollars.
Exactly.
I'm talking, your painting business, your flooring business, your appraisal business, your restaurant business. Even if you are like, no, my business has never had, a net profit of $1 million or $2 million. That's not what business valuators look at, right? There's other factors that the business valuator is looking at.
Yeah.
And so you may say, my business is not even worth $1 million. And these experts are saying it's 2, 3, 4, upwards of $8 million. I've seen that take my clients by surprise. And let me make it even more complicated. Why? Because we're in the legal lounge.
Yeah.
Is what if that business owner has a business partner? What is the division of said ownership? Are they 50-50 owners? Are there 4 partners? Does everyone own 25%?
Right.
Does someone own less than, a quarter?
Yeah.
And then you're looking at, now we're looking at a total business, let's just throw it out there, of say $8 million. The spousal share, if you will, is the $2 million. And that's then considered marital interest in a business.
Right.
But it's not like that business owner can just sell the business because they have 3 other partners to deal with. And so how do all those factors get involved? And so business owners will be like, I feel defeated. This is crazy. This is so complicated. How did I even get here? And I don't say it because it's too late, but bet you believe in the back of my mind, I'm like, if we had a prenup or if we had a postnup or if we had just some type of agreement between the spouses when this business was first created or this business interest was first obtained, then we'd have greater clarity today.
Yes.
And when I say these agreements, I do mean to say it is some type of meeting of the minds between the spouses, whatever that may be. So for example, they can say, regardless of how well the business does, it is, currently valued at this amount. And the marital portion will be, a certain percentage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or hell, no, the business is to be considered now that spouse's sole and separate property.
Right.
Or whatever it may be. Or, spouse 1 gets the house and spouse 2 gets the business. And we'll just consider that an even split at the end of the day. There's just so many ways that it can be organized and can be more creative than what a judge can do. Because guess what? That judge will need those valuations and will need those expert opinions on the values of these businesses.
Exactly. And as the listeners, you could hear, that's not exactly clear.
No.
It's about as clear as mud.
Yes.
So if you wish to go wade in the mud, by all means, take your chances. But I personally would prefer to stay clean. And have something written down well beforehand.
Yeah. And we say this from the perspective of family law attorneys and litigators that have stood by these business owners, that have stood by the financial toll it takes to go through these processes. But go one step further, the emotional toll. And simply put, I really don't care how smart you are, how many degrees you have, how involved and how much you know about yourself. At the end of the day, you're going through a very emotional and probably traumatic experience of separation and divorce. And I truly believe that no person can think straight through the whole process.
No.
And that's why we have to bring in these professionals to help.
Exactly. Especially because think about the business. It's kind of like your baby. Like you created this, you fostered this, you nurtured this. So now the idea that it is now going to change in some way, it's either not going to be all yours. So you have to share it in some capacity or you lose it altogether. That's a lot to try and process. And so in trying to process that, you can't remain as smart and in tune and focused as you normally would be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then going one step further, after you've dealt with the traumatic experience of valuing the business, going to court, having a judge make certain findings of fact. And now, mind you, like, some of these cases that do involve bigger businesses, you are talking maybe 4 or 5, maybe even a 2-week trial. But that judge still does not know about your business, has probably not met your team or employees.
Nope.
Maybe doesn't know the sacrifice you as a business owner have made. And maybe you even sacrificed your marital relationship for this business.
Right.
And so you have this stranger telling you, okay, these are the facts and these are the factors involved in the valuation of your business. It is nothing but a number. It's going to be divided in XYZ fashion. And here's an order. Here's a pretty piece of paper that says this is the money you're getting. Okay, maybe you will get the business, but you will then have to pay however amount to the other side.
Right.
And then you have to move forward.
Yeah. And it's like, how am I doing that?
Yeah.
How do you expect me to do that right now and not feel some type of way about it?
Yep.
I think that's a question that I tend to get asked quite often. Like, how am I supposed to do this? And there's no good answer.
No, there's no good answer. We do work with a number of other resources like financial advisors, business coaches, CPAs, to try to help our clients navigate that next step. Because, I mean, quite literally, it's like someone took a bomb, exploded it in the middle of the business, not physically, but like, mentally. And now it's, how do we pick up those pieces to fix it?
Being a business owner or being anybody that's going through a separation process, it's always going to be good to kind of gather your troops.
Yep.
So get a team together to start saying, okay, this is what the layout looks like. How are we going to deal with it?
Yep.
That becomes even more important when there's a business involved.
Yeah.
Especially if it's one where you're like, yeah, it's not possible for us to split this business, and I'm not interested in splitting this business.
Yep.
So if I know that from day one, I really need my team to tell me, okay, what are the options I have in front of me so that this stays on my side?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And that is a lot easier to your much earlier point of if you keep the business financials and setup separate from your personal.
Yes.
You got to keep it separate.
Please.
Yep.
And do not mix.
Let me bring back those business evaluators as well. They need to see the numbers for your business. And if you're charging your summer cruise, personal summer cruise, to your business account, suddenly that's going to create some confusion. Because can your business afford a summer cruise every year? Because that sounds kind of fancy.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Suddenly you're like, oh no, it was personal.
Like you're
not
opening
business.
windows and doors that you don't need to be opening.
One last topic is the income of a business owner. Again, for the listeners who can't see us, we are looking at each other, and because this is a sensitive topic. Business owners, what you pay yourself, if anything, is not your income for spousal support or child support purposes. What the net revenue is not necessarily your income either, but it's somewhere in between.
Yes.
So a good example is, yes, whatever you do happen to pay yourself, if you pay yourself as a W-2 employee, that'll be factored in. However, if there are certain business expenses that a judge could connect to covering some of your personal expenses or personal living situation, then a judge can add that in. A judge can add in any distributions you've taken. A judge can add in other personal expenses, maybe not personal to you, but that you would logically as a spouse or a parent pay. So for example, yes, maybe against our advice, maybe you pay your child's college out of the business account. Well,
please don't do that.
Don't do that. But that is not a business expense, one, but two, that is technically money that theoretically you could have taken to cover more personal expenses. And so maybe a judge will add that back in. So these are all considerations that a judge will take into account when figuring out your income for spousal support and child support purposes.
Yeah. It cannot be said enough. The more messy you make your accounts, the easier it is to start pulling in things that you're like, well, that has nothing to do with my personal life. Yeah, but you're paying for it from your personal account. So
Or your business account. Yeah.
It makes it possible for us to make the determination. Yeah, okay, no, we're going to count that towards this.
Yep.
So
and go one step further, because yes, this happened in a courtroom where a business owner was trying to get a vehicle for their business, and they put a certain income on that loan application. But it belongs to the business, but the business's name is on it. Does not matter.
Yeah.
If you have represented out there in the world to a loan agent, even if it's a car loan agent, that you make a lot of money, judge may say, well, then you make a lot of money for child support.
You made a lot of money. So.
Yeah, for child support and spousal support purposes. So these are great considerations for that business owner. There's so many other topics we could address, and I know our time is running short, but what would you say is your last tidbit of advice to those business owners?
Have conversations early. Be clear about what you want for your business and write it down. Take control of that situation. Write out what you want, because it'll save you a lot of headaches in the future.
Brought to you by Tiffany Bird, attorney with Modern Legal, here to help you navigate the legal system when your family and the law collide. Thank you, Tiffany, for being here again on the Legal Lounge. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our discussion. To learn more about me and the Modern Legal team, go to our website, modernlegalnc.com, or check out the links in our show notes to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can also call us at 704-286-6302. If you have been intrigued by the conversation and would like us to continue our discussions, please subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.